Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our Firetime Network Power Hour, second one ever. Super excited to be here. Mr. Falco, how are you doing?
Tim, I am doing excellent.
Cool. Well, you know, the last Power Hour was great. It's awesome that we're on to number two, and I'm super excited to get these things rolling. As people are coming in here, just so that we can recap, if you're new to this, for a long time inside of the Firetime Network, we did happy hours, and we felt like we wanted to try to take that mentality of togetherness and community and invest it into something that was radically intentional and could be used long term, just to help people grow themselves and their businesses and the people that they work with. So that's what the point of Power Hour is. Every month we're taking a different topic, and these conversations are pretty much 100% unscripted. Grant, we've talked a little bit about how we want to talk about
Tim, we've talked
running.
about meetings so much that it's going to be hard to fit all the stuff we probably want to talk about into one 60-minute power hour session.
Yeah, it is. But I guess the point of that is that the goal of this is just to share authentically what us and other leaders are doing in their own businesses, and not to have a giant production of it. And down the road, we have some awesome topics for later this year where we're going to bring in guests, and we want to include members of the audience as well. But in the meantime, the heart behind everything that we're doing with the Firetime Network, the Firetime Magazine, and everything else that it entails is that true power is actually found in pouring yourself out. That's the heart behind the name Power Hour. That so much today, you hear people talking about self-help. You hear people talking about improving themselves and their companies, and a lot of the time it's like, but for what purpose? And we feel like true power is actually found in serving others and in pouring out what you have for their good, and that's the heart behind everything. So, Grant, I've kind of been talking here at the beginning. We're going to be jumping into, how to run effective meetings and how companies can't afford not to run effective meetings. But maybe I'll turn it over to you. What are you excited about for this Power Hour?
I think that meetings in general have a negative connotation or a bad rap. And I think that they can be boring, they can be stale, and they can be unproductive. But I'm excited to talk about why weekly meetings are so important, and maybe reflect a little bit on what they've done for us, whether it with our own individual businesses or with putting together the Firetime Network. Because where would we be? And we would not be here without
Yeah.
our consistent meetings. So yeah, I'm just super excited to talk about how important meetings are, and
Yeah.
maybe some ways to get started.
Yeah, so good, man. Hey, so as we get rolling, this production is brought to you by the Firetime Network. You see it scrolling across the bottom there. If you are not part of this community yet, you need to go to the firetimenetwork.com. Oh, you know what? That's the magazine scrolling across the bottom, but that's all right because the magazine's part of it. So if you want to be part of a community that has conversations about this, shares their best practices, you got to go to the firetimenetwork.com. Launched out of the Firetime Network is our monthly magazine that's available at itsfiretime.com/subscribe, 100% free. But basically each issue of the magazine, frankly, is like getting probably 3 or 4 of these Power Hours.
Oh yeah, at least.
Okay, so Grant, one thing that I want to touch on, and we're going to jump into meetings, but we've got a giveaway, and this is 100% like Grant Falco. I feel like this is just your specialty. What are we giving away today?
Okay, so today yet another Yeti Rambler. This one's unique in that it's a 14-ounce mug. Uh, you know, Everybody kind of has heard of Yeti, and I don't know if we all have them, but we have a variation of it. If you have one, or if you get this one, what this one is so awesome for is eating ice cream out of. I'll tell you, you put ice cream in this thing and it does not melt. I'm not joking, down to the last drop. So I would suggest that the winner needs to eat some ice cream in this and send us a picture so we can put it in the next magazine publication, because that's what we're doing with all these winners. We are putting a picture and promoting the giveaway through our magazine as well.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah, we'll
and
give
the
that away today.
so I'm gonna tease this out. So last time we gave it away based on a question that we asked at the end, but this time we're gonna come right out of the gate to the beginning, and we're gonna announce the winner at the end. But to be the winner is gonna be the first person to post an industry related article in the Firetime Network. Okay, that is how you win the Yeti, that might make its way onto the screen as well later on in this conversation, just to remind people about it. But that's how you're going to win it. Post an industry related article inside of the Fire Time Network. Now, with that, Grant, let's get going and let's start talking about meetings. So you were the one that came up with the title of this Power Hour, that you don't have time to not run meetings. And this is something that we discuss a lot with businesses. I want to kind of just tee you up to start the conversation.
Tim, I think we're all in similar boats in different times in our journey, whether it's in this industry or whatever. But we all come across a time when we are more responsible for more things. And for me, it was, as I grew within this business, all of a sudden I was responsible for people. All of a sudden I was responsible for the accountability at the end of the job. I was responsible for people's happiness. I was responsible for the communication that happens and is established. And I could go on and on. And it was a journey, just like all of us, trying to figure out. And we all have different ways of getting there. But for me, Tim, meetings were the cornerstone of getting me to where I wanted to be. It was basically the catalyst for me to run this business. And so
Yeah.
meetings, and especially weekly meetings, which I think we're going to touch on the most, but meetings are just absolutely necessary. And what we're going to talk about today is how to effectively put them together and how to reduce the stress and the pressure we put on ourselves, because they don't have to be perfect. They
Yeah.
just have to be productive in a way with a little bit of intentionality that gets you from basically from one step to the other.
Yeah. So I think about this in my journey. We've talked about this on the podcast before. I started out as a very mediocre installer and kind of, I'm not even going to say worked my way into, I stumbled into other jobs along the way. But for me, I've worked in companies that have had no meetings. I've worked in companies that have had bad meetings, and I've worked in companies that have had excellent meetings. And every single one of those is a reality. But what I will say, I this is tough. I think I believe this, that bad meetings are worse than no meetings, because in bad
I
meetings
agree.
you can at least talk afterwards with somebody about, man, that meeting was horrible. This is what we should have done. And then you can have a mini meeting about that and then go out and do it. Whereas if there's no meetings, there's no communication. There was a company I worked for where we never had a sales meeting. And I remember going into my first sales meeting ever thinking like, oh my gosh, like how, why would we run a business and not do this? Right. Because especially on the sales end, it's so important that your team is in sync with what's going on. You got to keep their confidence up. You have to talk about what's coming down the pipeline. It's really important. And sometimes it's easy to feel a lot of shame and think like, well, my meetings aren't good enough, or I don't have time to do it. But Grant, you fundamentally say that you don't have time not to do it. And I think that the reason why, I mean, this is kind of stealing your thunder a little bit, but you have to have a foundation to run your business in. And there's times where I know people will come to you and say, Grant, can you help me with whatever it is? Can you help me with what I should do with my service team? Or how do I build a compensation plan for my installers or my salespeople? Or how do I hire effectively? And you've mentioned that if you don't have a foundation of how to run your business, like you can't do any of those things, right?
Oh, 100%. And meetings are crucial in that foundation. I think about how many struggles we encounter as business leaders, and that's any number of people within the business, because if you're responsible for one person, you're a leader. And if you want to be responsible for anybody, you're a leader, because you got to get there. I think that running a meeting, it puts a lot of pressure on you. And what ends up happening is we think we're not doing it very well. And I love your comment about a bad meeting is better than no meeting at all, because I think the number one problem, if we tie like all our stress and all our struggles back to something, like one thing, it comes down to communication within your business, whether it's with your staff or your customers. And you don't communicate enough. None of us do. I think the only type of acceptable communication is over communication. And meetings put you in a position to communicate, and to communicate unemotionally and with a little intention. It's amazing how much you can move the needle. I mean, Tim, how many times have we heard we don't have time to run a meeting, but then at the same time, we hear things like, I don't have time to identify and solve problems. I don't have
Yeah.
time to be proactive versus reactive. I don't have time. I can't stay focused. I can't hold people accountable. Meetings are the way that you start to solve those problems. And Tim, we talk about solving problems permanently. Well, we have problems, we have obstacles. And the reason you meet is to remove those obstacles from your path so that you're more successful.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, meetings can get a bad rap, and there's definitely such thing as bad meetings, but for most of our industry, we just need to start, and it's the only way to gather people around a common cause. I don't want to harp on that too much. I mean, meetings are important, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you believe that. It's why you're here. Um, I've got a couple talking points I want to just tee you up with, Grant. You've got kind of a core framework of 3 meetings that you use to run Falcos, and maybe we can just start there.
Yeah, so I'll just explain those and then we can kind of dive into each individual one however you want,
Yeah.
Tim. The first one is the everyday meeting. Basically, at Falco's, we're broken into teams, basically departments or teams. So you have sales team, installation team, support staff, warehouse, etc. And each team is expected to meet for a stand-up meeting. They meet on a
Mhm.
daily basis, and basically their intention is to set their day up for success, like ultimate success. What are the problems we're encountering? What are we dealing with? How are we going to be the best today? The next meeting, which is I think the most important meeting, is the weekly team meeting. And it depends on the size of your business, but having some type of weekly meeting that is intentional and focused on the things that are important to that team is absolutely crucial. So a weekly team meeting generally in the morning before the day starts is when the best time for these meetings to be executed is. And then the last meeting, Tim, is that store meeting, the one that we all feel weird to actually
Yeah.
do, or an all staff meeting.
Yeah.
This goes back to the over communication part. There's a lot of things going on within your business, and you think you've communicated all of this to everybody, but it ends up that you haven't. That store meeting is an opportunity for you to basically recap that last month and share everything that's going on, because it is super important for people to know and they want to feel included. So, stand up meeting, weekly team meeting, and store meeting or all staff meeting, or a monthly staff meeting is what we're going to talk about and kind of dive
Yeah.
into today.
I love that. So like my businesses are a lot different than Falco's. So we have, one of my companies is Wi-Fi. It's a small software company, and we have a real small team. So we just call it our daily touch point. And the daily touch point is usually a 7 to 15 minute Zoom call because we all work in different parts of the country. And it's literally just touching base. Hey, everybody, what are we doing today? Here's what I got on my plate. These are my priorities for the week. Here's a just immediate problem that we ran into. I'm going to try to solve it this way. Okay, perfect. What are you working on? What are you working on? And we do it really, really quickly. But it calibrates us. It helps us just stay in touch, just our daily touch point. I've seen this be really effective with installers. I mean, I know that you do this in my old company at Fireside Home Solutions. They would run a daily installer meeting, and it's so good. Like, what are the jobs for the day? The install manager takes a look at it. Any last minute pictures of, hey, be careful for this roof. Be careful about where this vent termination is going to go. And everybody loads up. They leave. But that daily touch point, it does have a way of solving problems before they happen. What you're in these daily quick meetings, which it's amazing. It's just a huddle before the football game, right? Like a good
Yeah.
team on most plays, they huddle up, and it's just a quick huddle, but you're saying, hey, here's the play. We're on the same page. Let's go do it. Um, in this though, you're not going to be solving big problems. Like you're going to deal with maybe some tiny fires that are immediately impacting what's right in front of you, but you're not solving any big major problems. And that's okay. Like the point of these quick daily meetings is just some kind of common direction. We're going to put out immediate fires that stop us from what we're doing that day, and then we're just going to go do it. And that's kind of like the cost of entry to stay in business. I mean, without that, we're
Yeah.
just going to trip all over ourselves. But the weekly meeting is a more proactive meeting, right?
Oh, yes, 100%. I mean, something to add to the stand up meeting is it's kind of where you identify problems. Like
Oh, I love that.
you're
I
dealing
love
with
that.
things on a daily basis, and we put out fires, but we don't find cause. We don't find the root of that problem. So the stand-up meeting truly identifies what the problem is. What the weekly meeting is, yes, you'll identify problems for the weekly meeting, but that's your opportunity to start solving those problems. Start working on the things that are going to make you better as a team and as an individual. The stand up meetings, getting together and being together, communicating about that day and that day's problems, it's difficult in the day to day, in the whirlwind of the business, as we always say, to solve those problems. A weekly meeting, if intentional, is a time where unemotionally we can work to solve those problems. And
That's so good.
what's really important and special about a weekly meeting, Tim, is that they're done consistently and they're done intentionally. And it doesn't have to be like really complicated. I think it comes down to a few important things, but what you want to get out of a weekly meeting is production from week to week. One of the things that I recognize within myself and within a lot of businesses is that we have a million ideas. And a lot of times our ideas are to solve problems, but it takes planning and executing to actually solve those problems. And we don't have time to do that. A weekly meeting is actually establishing intentionality consistently, unemotionally, to work on those problems. You know, just talking about what assigned task you have at the end of the meeting and then starting that next meeting with the assigned task gives everybody a due date, gives everybody some
Yeah.
accountability. We're accountable to others, and moves the needle. So yeah, just we want to work on our business, and meetings are the way. The weekly meetings are the way that we are able to actually work on our business.
That's so good. And I threw a question up for anybody that wants to comment in on this. Like, what's your biggest fear about running meetings? I mean, because frankly, there is fear with it. I remember in my when I first started as a sales manager, feeling scared to start meetings and thinking like, am I going to look dumb in front of people? You know, I mean, honestly, like, yeah, I mean, like I felt dumb about that. You know, Danny's got a comment here. The biggest fear is having a bad meeting that doesn't accomplish anything and wondering why you started in the first place. And like, I know what that feels
Totally,
like. I
totally.
felt that. And even,
I
you know, I
still
mean,
feel it.
Danny, yeah, and I know Danny has been faithful to be running regular meetings in his business, but that fear is absolutely there. Um, my thought is that I actually believe that the weekly meeting is the place to start. Like if you now, I guess it depends a little bit on whether you're working on the install side, the management side, but I love starting with a weekly meeting because it's low pressure. You don't have to do it every single day and you can put some thought into it. What we found was that by having sales meetings every week and you know, uh, our stores had between 2 and 3 salespeople each. So that may be bigger or smaller than your company, but these meetings they weren't with a ton of people. But still, by gathering a few people together, and we had a kind of like an agenda that we would go through. It was I wouldn't call we had a framework that we went through every single week. It was A B C D, and by doing that, like we just got better and better and better at what we did. And I want to give you a framework. I'll throw this out there. If you are looking at starting a sales meeting, this is a framework that I use with all of my clients. You're welcome to steal this. There's nothing special about it. It's a 4-part framework. Part 1 is review. Part 2 is goals. Part 3 is training. And part 4 is grievances. Really simple. So, like under review, with salespeople, we just review our numbers. How are your numbers looking? How's your backlog? How's your close rate? What are you finding with your customers? How is foot traffic this week? Are people interested in pellet units this week as opposed to gas inserts? Like we just review. That's all that it is. Anything new that we need to review, we just talk about it. This can take, I mean, 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long. But team members can kind of self-report. Where if we're in the meeting, I can say, Grant, like, talk to me about your numbers. How are your sales looking? You know, and you can just speak experientially about that. The second part that we go into is goals. So every single week, when I work with salespeople, we set a goal for the upcoming week, and in the meeting, we have to report on how we did on our previous goal and report what our upcoming goal is. So that's it, just self accountability of like, hey, last week my goal was to try and close Mrs. Jones and I don't know, Mr. Smith's wood stoves. I got Mrs. Jones. I'm still working on Mr. Smith. Great. Like that's a great report on your goal from last week. Hey, this upcoming week, I'm going to try to make 12 follow-up calls to customers. Awesome. So part one is review. Part two is goals. Part three is training. And there's always training that needs to be done. This could be product training, technical training. For me, honestly, most of the time it's sales practice, just live sales practice, where we just literally, like, I'm the customer, you're the salesperson, or you're the customer, I'm the salesperson, and we just practice sell, and anybody else in the room just gets to give the salesperson feedback afterwards. And we have training is probably the longest amount of time you spend in the meeting. That's probably going to be 20, 30 minutes. And then you end the meeting, part four, with grievances. I think about that Seinfeld episode with, Festivus for the rest of us, and Frank Costanza's talking about the airing of grievances. And that's what it is. Like, you air your grievances, because for salespeople, you've talked about this a lot. Salespeople have to have confidence. If they are not confident, if they're in a funk, if they're mad about something, it infects everything. And so you have to allow them a forum to air their grievances, and they can air unfiltered grievances. But what has to happen is we say, totally understand that. I'm glad you got it out. Either we can do something about it and I'm going to go to work, or you know what, that's a long-term problem, but maybe at some point it'll get addressed, or I understand how hard that is, but we're not going to be able to address that. But like, you got to give, yeah.
You have to listen, and they need to tell you, because a lot of times we complain outside of where, to the people that maybe can't do anything about it. And so that gives us an opportunity to unemotionally, complain or share our grievances. And it gives the leader to either explain it, because a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding, or fix it, resolve it, work on a solution towards it. So I love it, Tim. What's really cool, Tim, I'm gonna go into this real quick. What's really cool is how different, there's no one way to do this. So Tim has his way, Grant has his way, Danny, you're going to have your way, and others are going to have their way. And it's really important, as Tim and I talk, and as we listen to others, as we go through this Power Hour journey, that we just take bits and pieces of each and every person and what they do, and put it together our own way. For me, in running a weekly meeting, for me, consistency and simplicity is like vital. Like, I need it to be consistently done the same way, and I need it to be simple. But I, of course, just like everything else, need it to be productive and worth it. I mean, Tim or Danny, like, I fear every day that some of the meetings that I run are going to fall flat on their face. And, sometimes I only have 10 minutes to prepare, but I always try to spend some time to prepare. The thing about that is, if you have one positive note, one learning experience from this meeting that you wouldn't have, it's worth it. And everything else is just a cherry on top. So to kind of go into the way I would run weekly meetings consistently throughout a number of different teams is kind of action related. So it's similar to Tim's, and almost like kind of covers the same things. But for me, tasks and action items, taking one thing every week and working on it and getting it done the next week. There's so many ideas. We work on a million things and we never finish them. So the first part of your framework or agenda, from my point of view, is that you have to talk about the tasks that were assigned the previous week. And at the end of every meeting, assign tasks to people. We all need to chip in to make this team better. The other things, and I won't spend a lot of time with this, Tim, because we only have so much time, but when I'm looking at employees, and I've told this story a number of times, it comes down to expectations. And really what I'm looking for in employees is for them to understand performance and how they're doing, and them to also invest in my company. And so when we meet weekly with each team, we review performance. We talk about how we did. Did we win? Did we lose? Or, like we like to call it, learn. And then we talk about how we can do better if we didn't win, and we talk about what we did well if we did win on performance. So if it's revenue numbers, if it's total units, if we're talking about sales, or if it's just installation units and incomplete jobs, reviewing performance, your team knowing what is expected of them to perform is absolutely vital. If a team member, an employee or team, if they're not performing, what should they be doing? They should be investing. We need to work on the business. We need to be doing things. So for me, every team meeting starts with the action items assigned from the previous week. Then we go into performance review. Then we go into that one investment we're all working together on to get completed. We talk about grievances, hot topic, urgent situations, and then we round out with assigning tasks to keep that wheel moving. And I
Yeah.
cannot emphasize that enough. Not for everyone, but for me, the simplicity and consistency of having that same framework or agenda per meeting has really helped me kind of understand and balance all the things
Yeah.
that I'm supposed to balance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think what's cool, like you were saying, is like we have different approaches to running a weekly meeting. Some of the goals and objectives are very similar, but there are differences. And with you as a leader leading your team or whoever you are in charge of, it's going to look different for you, and that's okay because the most important thing about the meeting is the togetherness and the unity that comes with it.
Totally.
And what I've found is by building a framework, that 4-part framework, it actually cuts down my time and preparation quite a bit because I know what to
Exactly.
expect and I can prep the team. Like in a sales meeting, for instance, I have a set of metrics that I want every salesperson to come to the meeting with. So because I've communicated that, like I don't have to go up and dig the numbers. Like they're bringing
Exactly.
their own numbers to it, right? And for the review part, it's just me facilitating. Hey, can you talk about what you brought to the meeting? And they can just talk about, hey, here's my numbers. This is what I'm finding. Here's what happened this week. This is a problem I ran into. I don't know what we're going to do about it. Like it's you being a facilitator and a coach rather than you forcing things. And I found that framework, it drastically cuts down your time because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single week. And it starts to build a habit with the team as well. Like they start to really get in the groove of it.
Totally. I mean, we talked about you talked about simplifying the process and kind of in essence having the work already done and the expectation that there's a due date each week on this work. You know, one of the biggest struggles for all of us is we're so in the business that we don't have time to work on the business. And that is said way too much, but there's no better way to truly say it. Structuring out these weekly meetings with a little bit of intentionality, no matter any way you do it, like Tim, like me, or like whoever, it cuts down on how you uh, have to organize yourself to work on the business, because you know when you work on that business is the half an hour preparation for that meeting, and then you can get back into the whirlwind. But that is your
Yeah.
time to work
Yeah.
on the business and remove those obstacles your team's encountering.
Yeah, it's not the focus of this power hour, but I'm thinking about it because we were talking about this recently with Sam O'Donnell from Wi-Fi, and we were saying that I truly believe that for people that don't have enough time in the day and they're running around, I'm thinking about like an owner or a general manager that is just being pulled in a million directions. I really believe that the first thing that needs to be done is offload sales to other people. I believe it's the first thing that needs to be done.
Close enough is
And
good enough.
yeah, that's right. Close enough is good enough. And the only way to do that, like what I found with myself, was it was actually by starting to have weekly meetings. Like that was my time to train my people to try to tell them what I believed was important, to measure their habits, to look at their success. And I mean, honestly, I'm thinking back at my time at Fireside, and I can think of I gotta think about this. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven salespeople I had that all sold I ever did retail. And I look at that as like, that's awesome because it means that they can do it. And so because I don't have to sell as much, now I can go and work on a different area of the business. I can work on our in-home preview process. I can spend time with our installers. So building this cadence of meetings, this is where you said, Grant, you don't have time not to run meetings. You really don't, because this is where you can actually train and improve your people. It's just not going to happen if you never meet. Our industry is in a crisis where, I mean, even if you run a great business, we're losing people left and right just due to a lot of factors, but especially companies that don't have any kind of a training program. They don't meet with their teams regularly. Is a team member, if you're never given feedback, if you're never given a chance to get better, if you never know what your boss is thinking or what direction they're going to go, you're just not going to stick around with that company.
Oh, Tim, I love it. I mean, honestly, our employees want to be happy. Our employees are leaving in droves because they've been hit with this massive disruption, COVID, over the last 2 years, and they're reevaluating everything. And you know what? you have to reevaluate everything too, because they're going to leave you. And I think like the secret, the trick is they just want to be happy. They want you to recognize that they're doing a good job. They want to
Yeah.
win. And like with the weekly meeting, the hardest part for me was at the same time I'm trying to figure out this business, I'm trying to improve the culture, right? You're trying to figure out, how do I improve the culture? Your employees have to be recognized for winning when they win. And you have
Yeah.
employees that are winning every day, installers in the field. They come back resentful because they're not appreciated or recognized for winning consistently. And
Yeah.
they don't even know half the time what you expect and what winning even looks like. Having a weekly meeting gives you a chance to celebrate those wins and share how much you appreciate, because it doesn't matter how much you appreciate unless they know it.
So good. So if anybody wants to comment in, we can take a question. If you have any questions about daily meetings, weekly meetings, monthly meetings with your company, anything that you want us to address, or if you want to make a comment, feel free to do that. Um, while we're waiting for that, Grant, I want to jump into this. Well, actually, let's hit this idea of yellow, yellow, green, and red. This is something that you make really prominent in your business, right?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to what you've always talked about, and we've learned to kind of implement within our weekly meetings, and that's a scoreboard. And you only know how well you're doing if there is a score, something that is documenting and you're reviewing and acknowledging is a good performance, bad performance, and if there's some type of scoring system to that. So as we've put together our KPIs, our metrics to run whatever team it is, install, sales, or whatever, we have decided based on goals. So what we do at the beginning of every year is we establish one, two, and depending on the department, maybe even a third goal sometimes, but I recommend keeping them narrowed down. And then metrics, KPIs that are set up to achieve those goals. And all the yellow zone, red zone, or red zone, yellow zone, green zone is you taking those metrics and deciding what is going to get us to that goal. That's green on a weekly basis. What do we got to do on a weekly basis to achieve that goal? And that number, whatever that performance KPI is, let's say it's we need to install 20 fireplaces a week. Okay, in order to hit, let's say 52 by 20, 1,040, something like that. I don't know if my math is right, but it's close. So 1,040 units a year. We need to install a minimum of 20 units per week. So we would put that 20 plus as our green number. Then our yellow zone number would be 15 to 19 or 14 to 19. That's okay. We're doing okay in the off season. That's probably acceptable depending on your company and whatnot. And that is something you want to monitor. You want to make sure that you're at least in the yellow zone. But if you're in the red zone, that means something's going on. Something's happening. Now, sometimes it's easy, like someone's on vacation. You can't prevent that. But sometimes there's reasons. Another KPI on the install side is urgent incomplete. You want to review those, and how many is acceptable? 0. So if you have 1 incomplete, it goes into the green zone. If you have 0 incompletes, it's a positive thing, and it's only it's in the red if you have any
Yeah.
urgent
Yeah. Yeah.
incompletes. 0 is yellow, and if you could, have a negative, you would, but you don't. So, but the yellow zone, green zone, and red zone, all what it does is it gives your employees a visual to understand that they're winning. And when you see green, I mean, I have service techs that run into the room and want to see green, and that means that they're winning and we can celebrate together.
Yeah, that's so good. We did regular green as well in regards to our sales team about like where are we with how many bids we have to get out, how responsive are we with our customers, where's our inbox at. It just gives really good language of like where if someone came to me and they were red, like I felt like my job as a manager was to drop everything that I had and get them back to at least yellow. Because for
Yeah.
salespeople, like once you hit red, now I'm speaking about this differently. Where you were talking about metrics on a scoreboard, I'm talking more about like the tasks that need to be done in a day. But once a salesperson hits red, stuff starts slipping through the cracks. Bids don't come in, they make mistakes. So my whole thing was like, I'm trying to keep my team, like I'm okay with them being at yellow. I'd prefer they're at green, but once they hit red, I got to pull my e-brake and I got to start working with them on what do we got to do to shovel things off of you to get you back to where you can be effective.
It comes back to identifying the problem. You can't solve the problem until you identify it. And red is telling you, hey, this is a problem. And it might be a problem just for that week, or it might be a
Yeah.
repetitive problem that you need to solve.
Yeah. So good. Okay, I'm gonna throw one at you here. So one of the things that I did when I was managing my retail stores was once a month I had a sit down with each of the people that I directly managed, and it was just a one-on-one sit down where the agenda was just me trying to invest in them as a coach, as a friend, as a boss, like any of the above. And that was so awesome. Like I remember we'd always do it out of the office. So there was a Starbucks that was just down the road from, I'm thinking about our showroom in Beaverton, Oregon. And I would go to Starbucks and I would have usually like 4 to 5 of these in a row because that was how big my team was in Oregon. And basically it'd just be these 30-minute meetings and a team member would leave, the next one would come, and I just staggered it throughout the day. But it was incredible. And again, this is one of those things where we think like, well, I don't have time to do that. If you're leading a company, I mean, if you think about this, I don't know how many people you manage or in your company, but say you've got, I don't know, 6 to 10 people. And let's say that you took each one of them out for a cup of coffee once a month, 10 people. How long is that? 5 hours. Like you probably burn through 5 hours doing something less productive than that every month. It's not that big of an investment. But I'm just imagining if I was a team member to have a boss that like once a month takes me out for a cup of coffee and is just like, hey Tim, like, how are you doing? How's your life going? Yeah, it's powerful. Like people are desperate to be known. Just like you said, Grant, like team members want to be happy. And for some of your team members, like maybe they don't have the best home life. Maybe coming to work is like their escape. A lot of people are so stuck in the whirlwind, they're not thinking about their lives long term. So like for you to just like take them aside and show them, dignity and value and worth by just asking about their lives and how can I help you achieve your goals and solve problems. I think that is absolutely huge. And it's something that that I try to do on a one-on-one basis with the people that I directly manage on the sales floor. And I think that made for much happier team members.
Yeah, that's kind of the fourth and final meeting that we would recommend, an individual one-on-one meeting and maybe try to do it quarterly. The one thing I want to acknowledge is you can't do all these things at once. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, honestly, the individual meeting, the one-on-one meeting has been the hardest.
Well, you have a lot more
I
people on your staff.
Yeah, yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, as you're talking about it, it makes so much sense. What people want, and I just had a salesperson say he wanted more grant time. He wanted more grant time. And sometimes we got to give an organ a certain amount of time to the people that are working so hard for you. And
Yeah.
like I said earlier, you might think and believe that you're appreciative, but you need to show them. In a one-on-one meeting gives you the opportunity to show appreciation and humanize yourself and
Yeah.
them. I have so often put together, one-on-one meetings, and it's been rough. I put too much pressure on myself. I fear the one-on-one. I don't know what it is, but
Oh, it's the
it's
most intimidating.
difficult. It is. But I will tell you what, it's almost every time we walk away so much better off. And it's
Yeah.
only as we grow apart that our relationship and dynamic changes. And what that tells me is every time I need to do it more often. I need to take time. Just like I'm saying, we don't have time not to do it with weekly meetings. As a leader, you need to understand that we have to make time individually and constructively for each and every one of our employees. Like you were saying, Tim, it's what they need, and it will go so far with you and
Yeah.
their relationship and just the production of your overall team and individual employee.
Yeah, recently someone pretty close to me was offered a job by a company with a, you know, really good salary, a good location, a really good opportunity, and this person said no to it for a job that paid them like significantly less. I mean, significantly, not even close to the same ballpark. because, there was, this person wanted to be part of a company that had leadership and made them feel valued. And that goes a long way. I mean, we can talk about compensation stuff in a different power hour, that money matters because it's a sign of respect. You want to be respectful to your people and pay them a good wage, but purpose is a bigger deal than money. It really is. And when people feel invested and connected to you, they give you the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't mean they're never going to leave, but
Oh, yes.
you have a much better chance of retaining them, or of at least getting notice before it happens. And that's really, really powerful. Danny's got a great comment here. So he says,
Yeah,
one-on-one is always hardest, it seems, right? In those one-on-ones, what can I do better to serve you or make you more successful? Man, that's the heart of the servant right there.
that's it. That's
Um,
it, Danny. That is exactly what you wanna do. I mean, I can't
yeah,
that is exactly what you wanna do, and that's exactly what they need to see and hear from you. I mean, I just can't that's it. That's what you gotta do, and when you sit down, you just gotta tell them that, and you won't believe, what how they look at you, first of all, and then just sit there and let them talk. A lot of times in these one-on-one situations, especially me, I feel, empty, dead space with my voice, when sometimes I just got to sit back, maybe allow it to get a little awkward, let people
yep.
communicate. All of a sudden it comes gushing out because you're trying to serve them and make them more successful and have an easier time.
Dude, I'm trying to learn that so much about just let that empty space hang. Don't be afraid of it.
Oh, it's so
So easy to want
hard.
to fill it with your own voice. Oh, it's so hard. Um, there was somewhere I wanted to go with that I thought, oh, this is what it was. So this is just a story. So at Wi-Fi, one of our team members, Matt Bradley, is our partnership manager. He's a close friend of mine. We've been really close friends for the last 15 years, and he's amazing at what he does. It's a pleasure to work with him. But I was thinking about this, and I was like, he's been here now for a little bit, and I want to have a one-on-one, just see how he's doing. But I mean, we have a daily touch point every day. Our company's small, so we're on the phone quite a bit. He's also one of my best friends, so we talk like just a lot outside of that. And part of me kind of felt this fear of like, so am I gonna like is my is one of my best friends gonna think I'm dumb or lame for scheduling this one-on-one? And dude, we had the best conversation. It was so good. I just asked him like, how are you liking working here? What can I do to serve you better? Um, what like financially, like is there a goal that you have of like where you want to be someday that like
Yeah.
I can help you get towards? And he texted me afterwards and just said he felt like it was the best meeting we'd ever had as a company. So it's really powerful. And this is just true for like we all want to be known, we all want to be invested into, and the more that we can do that to our team members, like it shows humility, it shows humanity, and it shows their value and worth, and like they will start to rally around you as that happens.
Yeah, and I think the way that Danny talked about serving and asking what you can do better, what it ends up doing is giving you a path to success. Now, success for each and every individual employee appears different, but through conversation, through asking that, you start to figure out what is the path? What is the next year hold, 2 years hold? I still struggle with this, but we named our individual once a year meetings called Find Your Fire meetings. And it's because that's what they really evolved into, finding your fire. I'm working with you as a partner, one on one, to find what is going to drive you, what is going to make you happy, where do we want to get in the next 12 months, and let's try to work together to get there. It's pretty amazing, but it all comes down to those one-on-one meetings and the leader serving that employee and asking, how can I do better for you? What can I do for you? I think is huge. And
Yeah.
Danny, you're just spot on.
Yeah, so good. And this is your line, Grant, but like you talk about, this is kind of shifting gears a little bit, but this whole idea that is going to come up as you start to meet regularly as a team is that you start to solve problems permanently. How often have we talked to companies that they're banging their head against the same wall, and it's like, hey, we did the job preview wrong, so we brought the wrong pipe out. And it's like, well, okay, like I get that can happen, but like, how often does this happen? Oh, every week. For how long?
Totally.
Oh, for the last 20 years. Oh man, like this salesperson, they just keep being rude to customers. How often does it happen? Oh, it happens like every week I get a call about it. Okay, how long has this gone on for? Oh, it's gone on for like 5 years. It's like, meetings are the chance to solve problems permanently. That's your line. I take no credit for it, but it's so true. Like, you can solve these problems. We get desensitized into thinking like it's just the way it is, but a lot of these problems can be solved if we're willing to take time out and talk about it.
Totally. I mean, uh, we what we see in businesses, what we deal with in our own business is we put out a bunch of fires. We get out the fire hose, we put it out with some water, and we go on to the next thing. But what we don't ever do is a fire investigation into why that fire was caused. And weekly meetings allow you to identify why. So let's take a fire. You don't have a 12-inch piece, you have an 18-inch piece, and you just need that 12-inch piece. Well, yeah, it's impossible to always get the chimney right. We know that. And if you use elbows in a certain spot, it's going to take, and you're going to need a bunch of small little pieces, but it's impossible to know. And you always miss the one that you need. So you meet, you'd say, this is the problem. We are missing pieces once a week on jobs. How do we eliminate this? You put together what is called a just in case like bucket, basically, of all the DV pieces that tend to be missing so that you take them out in an organized fashion. And then guess what? You never have that problem again. You never have to deal with that again. I think about like having people trying to grow an installation team and not knowing what people's qualifications are. That's difficult in coordinating jobs that are really difficult to really easy. How do you grow a team, especially with entry level installers, without understanding how difficult the jobs are? So you get together, you decide. The problem is we don't know how to schedule these jobs. We don't know how difficult this one is from this one. Okay, estimators, let's start ranking our jobs. Let's start putting a format to how our installers are, expecting the job difficulty to be. And then our installers are rated to go up to certain rankings. That is solving problems permanently. In a weekly meeting and stand-up meetings, identify problems through just going through whether it's urgent and complete, warranties. We don't have any
Yeah.
no charges. So if we
Yeah.
do any work for a customer and we don't charge, we call it a warranty and we investigate. Why? Because that identifies problems that you can then solve. So
Yeah.
many companies put out the same fire when one tweak of what they do is going to solve those moving forward. And that's what a weekly meeting allows time for.
Yeah. And we keep thinking, I don't have time. I don't have time. And it's like, okay, it's like, how long did it take you to put out this fire? You had to stop everything that you're doing. You had to take 2 hours to go solve it. And then it happens the next week and the next week and the next week. And it's like, man, just have a 3 hour meeting one time. And like, you're going to save yourself so much time on the back end. This is something that I've gone through recently. Cause like, I want to charge hard and I want to move fast in a couple weeks. I think we have a podcast episode dropping with our Fire Time magazine team. And you guys, kind of poke some fun at me very rudely. I was very hurt by it, but you poke some fun at me about how hard I want to run and how fast I want to go. And what we did internally at Wi-Fi the other day is we had a kind of a core process of our business that was very loose. I mean, it was not tightened up at all. So every time this happened, it was kind of a scramble of like, who's going to do what? How are we going to figure this out? And just wasn't effective. So Matt called this meeting and he's like, Tim, like we've got to draw the lines up exactly on what to do. And we scheduled an hour and a half. We had like 10 steps we had to go through. And in the first hour and a half, like we only got through 6 of them. And for me at the end, I'm getting itchy. I'm like, this is horrible. Oh, this is nails on a chalkboard for me. It is so bad. And we got done with the meeting. And I was like, hey, let's just hang on another 15 minutes. Let's just rush through we've got these last couple. And Matt just goes, no, let's just schedule another meeting. He scheduled another hour and a half meeting. And I'm so thankful for it because those 3 hours that we spent ironing everything out were better for it. And as I stepped away and thought about it, I'm like, why am I so anxious? What's so important that I have to do that I can't take the time to do this right, And I came to that second meeting and I kind of apologized and just said, sorry, I was rushing at the end. This is really hard for me, but it's absolutely the right thing to do. And there's multiple points in that second hour and a half where each of us are like, gosh, this is so hard because the detail is so boring and so granular, but we know that this is going to save us time on the back end. Some of the other day I heard in a podcast, they were saying that it takes longer to dig than to run. And the idea was like, well, until we dig this foundation, like, I mean, digging and running, I guess it's mixing analogies. But the point is, like, until we build the road, we can't run on it. And so that's what we're doing is we're building a road through a forest so that someday we can drive a really fast car and not have to worry about it. But that only comes through the hard work of building the road. A lot of people's businesses are like, they're just content running through the forest, but they got a blindfold on. So they're just running into trees left and right.
I mean, truly, like the power is in the details. And sometimes it's like, man, we've been working on this for so long. And it's because really good things aren't easy. And to make it easy is actually super hard. And if you don't have a controlled environment in which you're actually working on those things, it's next to impossible to get those things done. We look around and we wonder why we're not able to actually work on those things. It's because we're just running from one thing to the next. Unless you, for me, it was about holding myself accountable. I needed to be the best leader for the people at Falco's. In order for
Yeah.
me to do that, I had to be unemotional and present and balance all the different teams. And the only way to effectively do that was by having weekly team meetings, putting a team
Yeah.
together, assigning team leaders, and actually holding myself accountable to being at weekly team meetings, coming with intentionality. And honestly, you guys, like, I don't always feel like it. And I know my team doesn't always
Yeah.
feel like it. But
Yep.
every time I don't feel like it and we stick it out, I walk away thinking, I am so glad that we just did that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I know me and Danny have talked. I know that he feels the same way with that. I'll throw one thing out there. So we've talked about daily stand-up meetings, weekly meetings, monthly meetings. We've talked about one-on-ones. I'm going to throw out one more. I would encourage everybody to try to do a vision meeting at least once a year with their company. This is fresh on my mind because we just did it for Wi-Fi about a week ago, and we got our whole team in one spot, and we live in different parts of the country. So it was an effort to do. But we got into one spot and we took about 10 hours over 2 days. And we kind of carved out our vision as a company, our mission, and we carved out our core values. And I want to share these core values with you because like they blew my mind. I mean, literally, these would not have been the core values that I would have come up with by myself. Sometimes as a leader, you get these ideas of like, we're going to make this initiative, we're going to do this thing, but you don't involve your people. It is so much more powerful when you can have a meeting and involve your people. So what we did is we got together, we had this meeting. What do we stand for? How do we want to make decisions as a business? What is actually most important for us to do what needs to get done? And here's the core values. We had 7 of them. First one, default to generosity. Number 2, always be in touch with our customers' experience. Number 3, confront the brutal facts about our company. That one hurts. I wish that one wasn't a core value.
The things you don't do well.
Yeah. Be honest with our partners, even when it's difficult. Seek innovation wherever we can find it. One of our core values, we trust our team members to make the call. Finally, don't take ourselves too seriously. I think that was just a message for me that they wanted to really make sure it was communicated. But the point of that is that we had, I mean, this was a big deal, and it makes people feel empowered to be part of the process. Like, our team we're a new company. So like we're creating our core values, but in our next meeting, when we're going to try to get together in 6 months, the meeting might be talking about our core values, having one person give a presentation about one of our core values or talking about why it's so important. But these are things that are powerful. And like you said, Grant, you don't have to do all of it, but somewhere in here, if you can do like a daily stand-up meeting, if you have some kind of like a weekly team meeting, a monthly company meeting, if you can meet one-on-one with a team member, do some kind of a once a year vision, mission, core values, any one of those will make a major difference in your company as long as you keep doing it over and over and over. It's the momentum that starts to win long-term.
Well, Tim, like, when I listen to you there, it's an alignment, really.
Yes,
Like
it is.
it's your team aligning. If you guys are of the same vision, have the same core values, you're going to be making decisions on the same reasons. And it's so difficult to get your team aligned and get everybody making similar decisions. And that's honestly something that just sparked in me as you were saying that. And something that Falco's has never taken the time, among other things, we all have to make choices to let fires burn. And that is one fire that I have let burn. But just you saying that, all of a sudden I see, okay, if we're all trying to make decisions, we're trying to make decisions that are in alignment with each other, going in the same direction. Those things are absolutely vital.
Yeah. I was blown away. It came out so much better than anything I could have done myself. It was amazing for people to argue against me and win. Like it was so awesome to see people stand up for their ideas and say, no, this is going to be one of our core values. It was incredible. Getting really, really practical. So as we're kind of at the end of our time here, I want to hit just a couple more things real quick. Really practical. If you're starting out and you want to start with a weekly meeting, whether it's a sales meeting, an install meeting, whatever it is, here's my recommendation. Do it the morning of the first day of the week that everybody's in the office. So if you have a sales team and someone's off on Mondays, but everyone's there on Tuesdays, do it on Tuesday morning. If it's installers and everybody's there on Monday, do it Monday morning. But the first day of the week that everybody's there, do it in the morning. Just take an hour. If everybody comes in at 9 or 8 or 7, come in an hour early. If it's super early, like buy donuts and coffee. People love that. That's the time to do it for your weekly meeting. All company meeting, again, Grant, we didn't talk about this a ton, but like you've got a big company, like they need to know the direction from you. Like this is your one time as a leader to give them that direction, and you can't repeat yourself enough. I think that if you want to have an all company meeting, do it your last Friday of the month, right?
Yeah.
End of the month, last Friday, going into the weekend, take the last hour of the day, close early, whatever it is, and get everybody together and just celebrate the wins. Hey, here's what we did this month. So awesome. Great job, guys. This is an area
Inform
we
and
really,
inspire.
yeah, that's
Inform
right.
and
Inform and
inspire. That's what
inspire.
you want.
Yep.
That's what you want to do in a store meeting.
And you've gone as far as to say have a theme for
I, I
each monthly meeting.
I had a soccer coach in college that always had a theme for the year that, kind of rallied the troops. And so I believe that each month, there's something to work towards. So sometimes it's slow is steady. Sometimes it's we're on the right track. Sometimes it just depends on the mood and what we're dealing with. But I do try to theme out our all staff and store meetings.
So good. Well, hey, we are just about wrapped on our time. Because we're short on time, we will announce the giveaway winner in the Fire Time Network later. But whoever posts the first industry-related article inside the Fire Time Network is going to win the Yeti Rambler. If this is something listening to it where you're thinking like, I want to do this, I want to get better. You have got to take a look at the Fire Time workshops that are coming up. Grant, we're super stoked for these. I mean, I'm speaking for you, but I know it's true. We just met up in Seattle as a team. We're talking about this. Like, we're going to be taking 3 days to walk business leaders from our industry through a 10-step execution process to master the customer experience from the time they walk into the showroom all the way to the end of the day. And regular meetings is a part of this. Like, we're going to be talking about the cadence of meetings and how all of this culminates into a heartbeat report. Like, what if you had a report that was given to you every week by your team that told you exactly what was going on in the business? And you could look around and say, hey, what's going on here? Oh my gosh, this is incredible. I didn't realize we were doing this. It can inform everything you do. And we want to take people through it. We have an East Coast workshop that's going to be May 8th through 10th, 2022. And it's going to be in Lee, Massachusetts. We have a West Coast workshop that's going to be in Seattle, Washington. The Seattle workshop is hosted by AES, and the one in Lee, Massachusetts is hosted by Ray Murray. We're super thankful for their partnerships. But we're dead serious that we are going to run through this, and people are going to come out changed. I mean, once you start running your business through an intentional framework of execution, it changes everything. I mean, if you've been feeling like I can't get traction on this, I don't know how to do it, like, this is the foundation, and we're super stoked for it. Grant, signing off. What was your biggest takeaway from Power Hour today?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I wish we had another hour. I think there's so much value in meetings. The one thing that I want to leave everybody with is that you need to expect a fall off or a drop off in production at different times, and
Oh,
that's okay. And you have to push through it. Going through it, keeping it consistent, understanding expectations, holding those expectations accountable are absolutely crucial to run 52 weeks a year. So every once in a while, it might not go perfect. Do better the next time, but stick with it.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Hey, super thankful to everybody that's here. Our next Power Hour is December 16th. These are always going to happen on Thursday. And I think we're going to try to do them usually on the second Thursday of the month, unless Mir Grant has some travel going on. But December 16th, mark your calendar. So we just talked about how the workshop is going to be 3 days on the 10-step execution process. Well, next Power Hour is going to be 1 hour. It's not going to be the same as 3 days, but we will give you everything that we have for 1 hour about the 10-step execution process to grow your business. Man, super thankful for everybody that's watching. Grant, awesome to be here with you, and I'm excited for next time.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, I can't wait.
Cool. Well, hey, you guys have an amazing week. The work that you're doing matters, and we will see you later.